Greetings. For my semester project, I'll be using the concepts of Chapter 4 of our class textbooks and the first episode of the second season of the Netflix documentary series Dirty Money. This episode of the series talks about the unethical business practices of the well known financial services company known as Wells Fargo, where it was investigated around 2016 that the company was indulging in fraudulent business practices for the past few years. Wells Fargo is a multinational financial services company that is homed here in the U.S. It was founded in 1852 in Des Moines, Iowa, under two businessmen by the name of Henry Wells and William G. Fargo, hence the name Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is known for its signature red stagecoach, wagon, and family oriented environment. Most people thought of Wells as a safe place for them where their well being and safety financially was kept above the well being of the business itself. The reputation was instilled even more after the financial crisis of 2007 through 2008, where many big banks such as Lehman Brothers, Freddie Mac, and Fannie Mae went under, while Wells, who had not taken as much risk as these other banks did around this time, was still doing great. In an interview with Killian Collin, a former personal banker for a Wells for a Wells Fargo bank in San Diego, California, and a former Arabic refugee after the war in Iraq in 2003, said that at first he loved the thought of working for Wells, seeing it as a Disneyland of sorts where he could start a new life and put the events of his past behind him and achieve the American dream of financial stability and safety. However, in the early stages of him being there, he was slightly perturbed when his manager, who was a personal banker for the company as well, insisted that he should get an employee account open with the bank, even though he already had a student account open with the bank, not understanding why he would need another account. But anyway, he decided to go through with it. He later realized why his manager was so eager for him to open an account. It was found out that Wells district managers were pressuring the banks under them to get as many accounts open as possible. Press, wait. Oh. It was found out that Wells district managers were pressuring the banks under them to get as many accounts open as possible, and if their quotas were not met, employees under them would constantly be threatened with harsh corrective action. Speaking of corrective action, it was well known within the company that if an employee were to make a phone call to human resources complaining about ethics, that they would get fired, despite knowing that they were indulging in unethical practices. There were reports where people were getting blackballed and could never find another job in banking again after they got fired from Wells. But back to the accounts, they would even have so-called family and friends days where banks' quotas would double and employees quotas would double because they're expected to reach out to family and friends in order to get more accounts open. Colin later stated that the company was opening accounts for customers who were Colin later stated that the company was opening accounts for customers who never even requested for an account to be open. The reason that the company wanted more accounts open because every time an account was made, even if it was unfunded, it showed that Wells had sold something, and this in turn would make their shares go up on Wall Street, which equals more money for the company. I chose chapter 4 from the book because there are a lot of ethics related issues with this situation. There were a lot of underhanded, lowballing schemes that the company allowed to happen, and people lost a lot of trust in Wells because of this. In chapter 4, it talks about ethics. It talks about how ethics start at the top and how managers are supposed to instill corporate values in their employees. But in the case of Wells, they were actually endorsing this unethical behavior. This chapter also says that the use of overly ambitious goals and incentives can create an environment in which unethical actions can occur. The goals that were set by Wells for their individual banks were entirely overambitious, and district managers knew in order to get their goals met, their employees under them would have to indulge in unethical and lowballing schemes in order to get their goals met. While the company did have a code of ethics set for the employees, as one of the interviewees stated, it seemed as it seemed to only be a placeholder, as many of the banks were doing exactly what their code of ethics told them not to do. I think the most unnerving thing about this situation or this scandal was really that nobody was really held accountable for anything that happened. The company did have almost $3 billion in settlements and consent orders that they had paid in 2018, but no one person or group of people were held accountable. The CEO of the time of this happening, John Stumpf, was quickly resigned. With the CEO at the time that this happened, John Stump quickly resigned from his position once reports started coming out about the company and when he began to be pressured by the public and lawmakers alike. But he has yet to give a reason as to why he is signed. So if nobody is made an example of and an example so if nobody is made an example of, who's to say that these unethical practices cannot happen again in a different situation? Thank you for your time.